Living paycheck to paycheck often feels like a simple financial inconvenience, yet beneath that daily grind lies a profound psychological weight that subtly shapes every decision we make. Imagine waking up on a Monday morning, checking your bank balance, and feeling that familiar tension. Every expense carries more than just monetary cost, it carries an emotional cost. The dread of an unexpected bill, the anxiety of a looming deadline, the mental juggling act of ensuring rent, utilities, groceries, and transportation all align perfectly. This is the hidden burden of financial fragility, and it is far more pervasive than many recognize. The core concept at play is scarcity. Scarcity doesn't only apply to physical resources, it applies to mental bandwidth, emotional energy, and decision-making clarity. When resources are tight, the mind automatically prioritizes immediate needs over long-term planning, a phenomenon behavioral economists refer to as tunneling. Tunneling creates a narrow focus, the present dominates, and the future is deferred. It's why people living paycheck to paycheck often report higher stress levels, reduced cognitive function, and a heightened susceptibility to impulsive decisions, even when the stakes are significant. Scarcity reshapes how we think, what we notice, and ultimately how we behave financially. Mathematically, the effects of living on a tight cycle are surprisingly stark. Consider an individual earning $3,000 a month with fixed monthly expenses of $2,900. On paper, they have a $100 buffer, but the reality is far more restrictive. Any small variance, an extra $50 for car repairs or a sudden medical copay, can push them into a deficit. Over a year, assuming 3 such incidents, this person could face $150 in unplanned expenses, which triggers overdraft fees, late payment penalties, and cascading stress. These financial microshocks accumulate not only in dollars, but in mental load. Behavioral studies estimate that the cognitive toll of constantly managing scarce funds can reduce IQ performance by as much as 13 points, effectively impairing reasoning just when it is needed most. Zooming out systemically, living paycheck to paycheck is not merely a personal choice, it is a structural phenomenon. Wage stagnation, rising costs of living, insufficient social safety nets, and predatory financial products collectively conspire to create a fragile middle layer. Unlike sudden poverty, this state is chronic yet invisible, allowing the illusion of stability while perpetuating financial stress. Banks, employers, and policymakers often fail to recognize how these systemic pressures interact with human psychology. The result is a society where millions operate under continuous strain, perpetuating cycles of limited savings, constrained opportunities, and deferred financial growth. The paycheck-to-paycheck pattern is therefore not just an individual burden, it is a societal design that exploits cognitive limits. Understanding this psychological framework reframes the notion of financial health. It is no longer only about the balance in a bank account or the size of a paycheck. It is about cognitive bandwidth, emotional resilience, and decision-making freedom. Scarcity compresses choices and magnifies trade-offs, making the cost of living on the edge far greater than any monthly spreadsheet suggests. The true expense of a tight financial cycle is invisible yet tangible. Delayed medical care, increased stress-related illness, constrained career decisions, and diminished life satisfaction. Financial fragility is therefore a mental and emotional phenomenon as much as a numeric one. One illustrative mechanism is what behavioral economists call the slack effect. Slack represents the mental and financial room to maneuver, to absorb shocks, to plan ahead, to experiment with growth opportunities. For those living paycheck to paycheck, slack is virtually non-existent. A minor disruption triggers immediate consequence, forcing reactive behavior over proactive planning. Without slack, opportunities for investment, skill development, or even meaningful leisure are foregone. In contrast, even a modest increase in buffer, say saving $200 a month or securing a small emergency fund, can dramatically increase perceived control and reduce stress. Here, the math of compounding interacts with psychology. Financial resilience breeds cognitive and emotional resilience, which in turn enables smarter financial choices. The psychological landscape of living paycheck to paycheck also intersects with identity. Individuals in this cycle often internalize scarcity, shaping self-perception and limiting ambition. Thoughts like, "I'm just not good with money," or "this is how life is," are reinforced by repeated exposure to scarcity-induced stress. Over time, these beliefs solidify, creating a feedback loop where financial behavior aligns with perceived constraints rather than actual potential. Changing the narrative requires recognizing that identity and finances are entwined. Financial flexibility is not only a numeric goal, it is a shift in mental framework, an understanding that one can make choices with foresight rather than react to scarcity. Historical parallels illuminate the depth of this phenomenon. During the early 20th century, urban workers often lived week to week, their earnings entirely absorbed by rent, food, and transportation. Studies from that period describe not only economic precarity, but widespread cognitive strain and social anxiety. Even minor wage increases produced outsized psychological relief, demonstrating how financial slack directly translates into mental and emotional capacity. The lessons echo today. Incremental improvements in stability, buffered savings, predictable expenses, small debt reductions have compounding benefits far beyond the dollar amount. It is a lesson in systemic leverage rather than individual heroics. As we examine the math further, the interplay between recurring expenses and small buffers becomes evident. Suppose someone manages to save $50 a month, building a $600 emergency cushion over a year. This buffer, seemingly modest, absorbs shocks equivalent to 5 unplanned $100 expenses. Without it, each expense triggers cascading fees and mental stress. With it, the cognitive load eases, decision-making improves, and the individual is more likely to avoid high-cost financial traps, such as payday loans or credit card penalties. In essence, small buffers unlock disproportionately large psychological and financial advantages, illustrating the subtle mechanics behind everyday money behavior. Finally, the calm, analytical perspective reminds us that living paycheck to paycheck is not a moral failing or a personal weakness. It is a predictable response to systemic pressures and human cognitive limits. Recognizing this allows for a shift in identity. One can view themselves not as trapped, but as navigating a complex financial ecosystem with predictable stressors. Small interventions, buffered savings, automated expense management, understanding cognitive effects of scarcity gradually alter both experience and behavior. The psychological cost, while real, is not immutable. Awareness, structure, and incremental action produce compounding benefits, illustrating that understanding the mechanics of scarcity and the hidden psychology of daily finances is as critical as the numbers themselves. The paycheck-to-paycheck cycle is therefore a lens through which we can see not only money, but mind, choice, and identity. By appreciating the interplay of scarcity, psychology, and systemic structure, it becomes possible to see how financial fragility shapes thought and behavior, and how small adjustments can ripple outward to improve both mental clarity and financial flexibility, revealing the unseen architecture of daily economic life.